In a high-temperature apocalyptic world, I sent my cheating husband and his entire family to their doom. I learned in advance that a high-temperature apocalypse was approaching, yet my husband cheated on me at this critical moment. He brought his pregnant mistress into our home and, together with his parents, drove me and my daughter out. Since he pushed me to the edge of despair, I won't let him have an easy time either. I concealed the information about the apocalypse, decisively got a divorce, and fled. I really want to see how this newly formed family can still act arrogantly in the face of life and death. 01. In the office, I frowned as I looked at the blazing sun outside the window. Recently, the weather had been extremely abnormal. It was already past 5 o'clock, but the sunlight was still as scorching as at noon. I sent a message to my husband, asking him to pick me up after work. Just the thought of squeezing onto the subway in such heat was unbearable. As it was nearly time to get off work, a message suddenly popped up on Instagram. Liana, a high-temperature apocalypse is coming, don't go out recently, stock up on supplies and wait for me to contact you. It was from my best friend, Daisy. She worked in a research institute and had been conducting explorations in the desert for the past 6 months. She never said anything without solid evidence. So she must have discovered something. My heart was pounding rapidly. I replied to Daisy, reassuring her not to worry, and then urged her to take care of herself. After that, I packed my things in a hurry and left the company. Downstairs in the office building, Soren's car was already waiting there. I stepped forward and tapped on the car window. He was so startled that it took him a long time to roll down the window. Honey, why did you get off work so early? I stood there, stunned. I couldn't ignore Soren's subtle movement of hiding his phone just now. If I wasn't mistaken, he was looking at Instagram. Who was he chatting with that he was so afraid of me seeing? Out of a woman's keen intuition, I immediately sensed that something was amiss. I had originally intended to mention the high-temperature warning, but I pushed it to the back of my mind. Throughout the journey, I kept observing Soren's expression. However, apart from that momentary look of panic, he showed no other abnormalities, so I had to pretend as if nothing had happened. When it was finally evening and Soren had fallen asleep, I took his phone and unlocked it with his fingerprint. I opened Instagram and indeed found something abnormal. Among the chat boxes with his colleagues, there was a cartoon avatar that stood out like a sore thumb. I clicked on it and scrolled up. Almost all of the conversations were explicit flirtatious messages. I had always respected Soren's privacy and would never look at his phone without his consent. That's why he didn't even bother to delete the chat records. At this moment, a mix of sadness and resentment welled up inside me. I couldn't help but feel the urge to drag Soren up and slap him hard across the face. But I knew I couldn't. Things had reached this point, and I couldn't act on impulse. I had to fight for the greatest possible benefits for myself and my daughter. More importantly, with the high-temperature apocalypse looming, the cracks in our marriage paled in comparison to the matter of survival. The top priority was to find a way to stay alive. I tightly clenched Soren's phone in my hand, and a terrifying thought suddenly flashed through my mind. Why should I tell him about the apocalypse? He had betrayed me, and shouldn't he pay the price for that? 02. The next day, while it wasn't too hot in the morning, I got up and went straight to my parents' house. Both Soren and I were extremely busy with our work, so our daughter was mostly taken care of by my parents. We only picked her up and brought her home during our days off. As soon as I entered the door, my daughter, a small and cute figure, rushed towards me and hugged my thigh. She said in a sweet, childish voice, "Mom, you haven't come to see me for 6 days this time. I'm angry." I gently rubbed her fluffy little head and apologized softly. "I'm sorry, Sage. Mom has been really busy recently. How about Mom stays with you every day in a few days?" "Okay, actually, I'm not really angry with you, Mom. I was just teasing you." Looking at my daughter's well-behaved and sensible appearance, a pang of sadness shot through my heart. She was still so young. How could I let her bear the fact that our family was on the verge of breaking apart? "Where's Dad? Why didn't he come?" "Dad is at work. He'll come to see you in a few days." My daughter was very attached to Soren, so I could only fob her off with that answer and asked her to play with her toys to distract her. "It's been extremely hot these days, Liana. I think you should take Sage back home. The air conditioner here is old and worn out, and the child can't stand the heat." My mother was busy in the kitchen and kept chattering. I quickly asked her to stop what she was doing and called my father out as well. After they sat down, I showed them Daisy's message and informed them about the impending apocalypse. At first, they thought I was joking. After all, such a ridiculous thing had never happened to anyone before, but seeing my serious expression, the old couple finally took it seriously. So, what should we do now? My father asked with a worried look on his face. I handed him a list that briefly noted down some essential supplies, mainly purified water and some high-temperature, resistant and non-perishable foods. Dad, it's best if you go out to buy these supplies at night. We can't be 100% sure about this information, so don't tell anyone about it. If outsiders ask, just say that it's too hot to take Sage out, so you're buying more food. I've made an appointment for a new air conditioner to be installed tomorrow. Mom, remember to call me in advance. Sage can stay here for now, and I'll move here later. These were just some things that came to my mind temporarily. To truly deal with the apocalypse, there were still many more things to prepare. I tried my best to explain all kinds of situations, and my father quickly nodded in agreement. What about Soren? What will he do when you move here? My mother suddenly mentioned Soren. I glanced at my daughter to make sure she couldn't hear us, and then I confessed that Soren had cheated on me. As soon as my father heard this, he slapped the table and shouted angrily, "This bastard! What did he promise us back then?" My mother was also very angry. Then why are you still going back? Just let him fend for himself. I had thought about that, but although Soren had cheated, his attitude towards our daughter was still unclear. What if he had the intention of fighting for the custody of our daughter? Then things would become very troublesome. So, before I could settle my daughter and ensure everything was foolproof, I couldn't let him notice anything unusual. After soothing my parents, I got in the car and prepared to go home. When I came in the morning, the heat was still bearable, but now, it was the hottest time of the day. As soon as I stepped out of the unit door, a wave of intense heat hit me, and my skin almost immediately turned red. On the way back, a large section of the concrete road had cracked and burst. I had to take a detour to get home. 03, when I entered the house, I found that Soren wasn't at work, and my in-laws were also there. As soon as Soren saw me, he came up and complained, "Honey, you drove the car away. How am I supposed to go to work now?" I ignored him and continued to change my shoes without looking up. "The car isn't yours alone. I can drive it if I want to." My tone was unfriendly, and Soren was taken aback for a moment. Just as he was about to say something, my mother-in-law interrupted. "How can you talk like that? Soren is the boss. Driving is important for his image. You're just a lowly employee. What are you showing off for? From now on, don't even think about touching this car." She had always been unreasonable. In the past, for Soren's sake, I didn't want to argue with her, but now, I had nothing to hold back. "I bought this car. I can drive it whenever I want. It's none of your business to comment here." Soren did run a company, but ever since he started his business, he had lost more money than he had earned. The house and car at home were basically purchased by me. She still thought her son was a big shot. My words once again touched Soren's fragile self-esteem, and his face darkened. "Is this how you talk to your elders? Do you have any manners? Could a person with good manners deal with his overbearing and shrewish mother?" I retorted without mercy. "If you don't like the way I talk, then don't let her come here. It's so hot." My parents couldn't stay in their hometown at all. What's wrong with me bringing them here to take care of them for a few days? I looked at him suspiciously. Since when had Soren become so filial? Although he was always good at pretending, after being married to him for so long, I knew his true nature well. He might say nice things, but in fact, he was extremely annoyed with his mother. It was obvious that a simple air conditioner could solve the problem. Why did he go to so much trouble to bring his parents here and cause trouble for himself? I didn't believe he was being so kind-hearted. Soren was still making excuses when my in-laws couldn't sit still any longer. My father-in-law gave Soren a meaningful look. "All right, she'll have to know about this sooner or later. There's no way to hide it. Just tell your wife the truth directly." "That's right. She really thinks our family can't function without her," my mother-in-law chimed in, not forgetting to belittle me with her words. Soren looked at me hesitantly and couldn't bring himself to speak. Seeing this, my father-in-law slapped him hard on the back and spoke on his behalf. "Soren has someone else outside. She's pregnant. You should make way quickly. Get the divorce settled before the child is born." Soren lowered his head and acquiesced to what his father had said. I gritted my teeth and stared hatefully at this family of three, wondering how they could say such shameless things with such a calm conscience. "Soren, Are you still human? I clenched my fists tightly, afraid that I might not be able to hold back from going up and tearing his face apart. I'm sorry, Liana, she's carrying my child. I can't let the child be born without a father. Although there was still a hint of guilt on Soren's face, the words he said were completely heartless. I could no longer suppress the anger in my heart and raised my hand to slap him hard. How can you say such a thing? Isn't Sage your child? Soren's face instantly turned red. My mother-in-law suddenly pushed me away and stroked his face with a look of heartache. How dare you hit him? After being married for 7 years, you only gave our family a useless daughter. My son should have kicked you out long ago. I'm warning you, Felicity is carrying a boy. If you know what's good for you, get out of here by yourself. Now I understood why my father-in-law and mother-in-law were so arrogant. It was because they finally had the grandson they had always dreamed of. Their obsession was so deep. I wondered if there was really a family fortune or title to inherit. Soren, you said that having only Sage in our life was enough for you, and you never cared whether it was a boy or a girl. Our family has had only one son in each generation for 3 generations. I can't let the family line end with me. I looked at Soren's hypocritical appearance, and memories in my mind kept flashing back. How could such a feudal and ignorant man pretend for so many years with a clear conscience? I no longer had any hope for him and showed my bottom line. Divorce is okay. Since you cheated first, you must leave the house with nothing. Absolutely not. Almost as soon as I finished speaking, Soren refused. My mother-in-law was even more insistent. Why, we paid the down payment for the house. What a ridiculous dream you have. That small down payment was nothing compared to the full payment. How could she have the nerve to mention it? Either you leave the house with nothing, or we won't get a divorce. Your grandson will be an illegitimate child who can never see the light of day for the rest of his life. After saying that, I turned around and went back to my room, ignoring the curses of my mother-in-law behind me. 04. After closing the door and calming myself down, I started to prepare the necessary supplies. I didn't know how long this heat wave would last. And it would be very troublesome to rely only on my parents and me driving around to buy things. I directly contacted a wholesale market and asked them to deliver the goods to my home. I racked my brains and browsed through various materials on the internet. Finally, I made a list and sent it over. Most of the food items were storable dry goods and vegetables, such as 200 gene of flour, 200 gene of rice, 200 gene of millet, 50 gene of potatoes, 50 gene of radishes, 100 gene of dried green vegetables, as well as 100 boxes of instant noodles, various self-heating hot pots, and compressed biscuits. As long as they had the items available, I basically ordered at least 100 portions of each. More importantly, for water, I directly purchased 500 barrels of mineral water, and 100 boxes of various energy-boosting drinks. Sage was still young, unlike adults who just needed to be full. Her nutrition also needed to be ensured, so I added 100 gene of beef and mutton, 200 cans of various types of meat, and 100 each of chickens, ducks, and geese. Considering the storage of these supplies, I ordered 2 large freezers. At that time, I would throw out all the useless furniture in my parents' house and use the living room to store the supplies. Cooling couldn't be achieved without electricity. My father had experience in this regard. I sent him a message and quickly received a reply. He managed to get connections to buy a diesel generator and also purchased solar panels, planning to install them himself. Then I bought a batch of medicines and various cleaning and toiletries. It was already dark by the time I finally finished everything, and I fell asleep in a daze. When I opened my eyes again, I was woken up by the noisy voices in the living room. When I went out to take a look, besides my in-laws, there was an unfamiliar woman in the living room. There was a pile of fruits in front of her. Usually, my mother-in-law would always find fault when I bought these fruits, but now she was being surprisingly generous. Felicity, get more nutrition, the baby will be healthier in the future. She gently stroked the woman's belly and earnestly advised her. I immediately understood. This woman was Soren's mistress. I never expected them to be so heartless. Soren and I hadn't divorced yet, and they actually brought the mistress into our house. A surge of anger welled up inside me. I directly rushed over and overturned the fruits on the table, shouting at them. Who allowed you to bring someone in here casually? Get out of here right now. The woman seemed to be extremely frightened by me. She shrank back towards my mother-in-law and called her mom in a low voice. She wasn't even married to Soren yet, but she was calling so affectionately. The more I heard it, the more disgusted I felt. I trembled with anger and grabbed her, dragging her towards the door. My mother-in-law was like a mother hen protecting her chicks, shielding the woman behind her. You little bitch, how dare you touch my grandson? I'll fight you to the death. This is my son's house. I can let whoever I want in. I didn't pay much attention to her old age. I pushed her away and pulled the woman towards the door. Suddenly, the woman's crying and my mother-in-law's scolding mixed together, and the scene became completely chaotic. My father-in-law took the opportunity to call Soren, and he quickly rushed back home. After Soren entered the door, he directly pulled me away. He stood in front of me, seemingly protecting the woman behind him. Juliana, have you had enough? There was anger on his face, and his tone was cold and stern. He was blaming me for another woman. The anger in my chest was boiling over. I was so angry that my whole body was shaking. Soren, we're not divorced yet. Do you still have any sense of shame? By now, our relationship had completely broken down. The last bit of Soren's guilt had also vanished. He directly revealed his true intentions. Felicity is carrying my child. It's so hot now. I can't leave her alone. I've made up my mind. Let's get a divorce. He finally said the word divorce himself. Now, the last trace of my attachment to him was gone. I replied expressionlessly. I said, if you leave the house with nothing, I'll agree to the divorce. Absolutely not. I paid the down payment for the house. After marriage, it was jointly repaid. According to the shares, the house should be mine. Even if you want to sue, I'll win the case. He spoke with full confidence, as if he had rehearsed these words thousands of times in his mind. What about Sage? I won't fight you for Sage's custody. I really couldn't hold back anymore. I raised my hand and slapped him, shouting furiously, you mean to drive me and Sage out, in such scorching heat? Where do you expect us to go? I think you truly intend to kill us. My eyebrows twitched. The more I thought about it, the more terrified I became. I suddenly realized that I had been blinded by anger. At this moment, my parents and daughter were anxiously waiting for me to make arrangements, yet I was only tangled with Soren. The top priority was to find a place to stay. I had only focused on buying supplies. My parents' small house simply couldn't accommodate so many things. Moreover, people's hearts were unpredictable. In the face of a major disaster, with so many supplies, we would surely become a target. The old iron door of my parents' house could be kicked open by me with just 1 foot. At that time, the danger would only double. Only then did I react. There were still so many loopholes in my plan. I'm not that capable. I can't take care of everyone. Right now, all I want is for Felicity's child to be born safely. Soren looked at me coldly. I lost my temper and stopped arguing with him. I agree to the divorce. I don't want the house. All the savings at home must be given to me, and I also want the car. The house had just paid off the mortgage this year. The total savings and the car were less than 1 million at most. No matter how you looked at it, I was at a great loss. Soren quickly nodded in agreement. We immediately drew up a divorce agreement on the spot. Soren proposed that I could only transfer all the property after notarization at the Civil Affairs Bureau tomorrow. To avoid disputes, I agreed to his request. 05. After signing the agreement, I rushed to the suburbs overnight and rented a villa in the mountains. The temperature here was much lower than in the city, and there was mountain spring water on the mountain, making it the most suitable place for summer escape. I pretended that I was renting it as a warehouse. The real estate agent specifically found me one with a basement. In the future, the supplies could be placed there, which would be much safer. More importantly, the landlord was abroad and had entrusted the rental matters to the agent entirely. As long as I signed the contract, I could move in immediately. I signed the lease for the house right away, after the payment was received. The agent gave me the keys on the spot. Then I contacted the customer service of the wholesale market and sent them the address of the villa. I paid double the freight, and they promised to start preparing the goods as soon as it was dawn. By the time I finished all these things and rushed back to the city, it was already dawn. According to the agreement, I went to the Civil Affairs Bureau. Soren still had some affection for our daughter. I picked her up on the way to prevent Soren from going back on his word. Although I didn't want my daughter to face the unpleasantness between us directly, the situation was urgent, and I had no choice. As expected, after the notarization, Soren was still reluctant. It was only when he saw Sage that he readily handed over the 200,000 yuan in his hand. When we were parting, Soren was hugging his new lover. The woman showed off in front of the child. Honey, Mom and Dad have reserved a table at the restaurant and said they want to celebrate properly. Let's go quickly, our daughter cried heart-rendingly, but Soren still didn't look back. I didn't watch her closely for a moment, and she ran towards Soren. She ran very fast. When she was close to Soren, probably because he was afraid she would hurt Felicity, he actually pushed our daughter away. The small body fell down on the curb at once, and blood immediately oozed from her knee. I picked her up, but Soren's attention was only on that woman. Sage hadn't even gotten close to her. I clenched my fists and stared fixedly at the backs of the two of them. I didn't want to go to extremes, but they forced me to. I sent my daughter home, then turned around and went to Soren's house. I removed all the removable parts from the air conditioner and the refrigerator. Soon, the equipment stopped working. I took away all the drinking water in the house, opened the windows to let the heat in, and the house immediately became as hot as a furnace. Let them enjoy it. I went home in a hurry, picked up my parents, and rushed to the villa. They felt sorry for me because they knew I hadn't slept all night. My father offered to drive and let me catch up on my sleep. I fell asleep feeling at ease. When I woke up, my father had driven the car to the building materials market and bought various materials such as stones, concrete, and steel bars. He said that people's hearts were unpredictable, and we had to ensure our safety. In addition, my father also bought a lot of flame, retardant and heat, insulating materials. He also bought a lot of daily necessities such as wires, faucets, water pipes, various small items, and maintenance tools. I had no knowledge of these things and didn't know how to use them at all. Fortunately, with my father around, I felt much more at ease. My father's words reminded me. I immediately placed an order online for several stun guns and self-defense devices and asked them to be delivered to our home immediately. When we arrived at the villa, the things I ordered had already arrived. The workers were unloading the goods. I didn't dare to reveal the basement, so I only asked them to put the things in the yard. The delivery man asked curiously, "Miss, you've got so many things. When will you be able to sell them all? Aren't you afraid they'll expire?" I had to make up an excuse. I'm a live streamer selling goods. These things will be shipped out tomorrow. You young people are really amazing. Unlike us, we can only do manual labor. The man was sweating profusely from the heat, but he still smiled and gave me a thumbs up. I felt really sorry for him. After the unloading was done, I gave him triple the handling fee and some extra tips. The man kept refusing, but I insisted that he take it. "Brother, it's really hot now. There have been a lot of accidents in your line of work. Stay at home and rest for a while before coming out again. I'm not a saint. I can't save everyone. This is all I can do." After the man left, I went to check around. There had been a plan to build a resort here before, so most people bought the villas with the intention of investment. The occupancy rate was not high. This was also convenient for our actions. My parents and I quickly moved the things to the basement. By the time we finished these, the generator, solar panels, and building materials my father bought had also arrived. By the time all these were installed, it was already evening. My mother and I were so tired that we collapsed on the sofa, while my father was still busy. He connected the circuit to the basement, powered on the freezers and the air conditioner, installed the solar panels, and reinforced the windows and doors with steel bars and cement. Looking at his masterpiece, my father was very satisfied. Up to this point, everything seemed to be foolproof. My mother and I contacted some relatives and friends, saying that we had fallen ill due to the heat and advising them to stay at home and rest as much as possible and not go out. We had done all we could, and the rest was up to fate. 06. We hadn't been here for a few days when the high-temperature weather erupted fully. Governments in various places successively announced the suspension of work and school. In many places, the roads had burst, and the entire urban traffic was paralyzed. Fortunately, the water and electricity systems were still operating normally. People stayed at home and could still hold on for the time being. Our family stayed in the basement. My father was chopping stuffing and pickling pickles. Since the capacity of the freezer was limited, my mother was also busy sorting out the things for fear that they would go bad. At this time, my phone received a message reminding me to update the system. Then I remembered that we had installed a monitor at home for Sage's sake. I had done so much. How could I not see for myself what would happen to Soren's family? I couldn't wait to open the monitor and found that all 4 members of Soren's family were in the living room. Felicity was lying on the sofa, with a basin of ice beside her. My mother-in-law was fanning by hand, directing all the cool air towards Felicity, while she herself was sweating profusely. Even so, Felicity was still not satisfied and complained to Soren. Soren, have you found someone to fix the air conditioner yet? I'm almost dying of heat. You can't even get the air conditioner fixed. What's the use of being with you? These words made Soren angry, and he retorted, can you stop complaining? They have a lot of orders. What can I do? Besides, is it really that hot? Why can we all tolerate it? But you can't. Felicity was immediately unhappy when she heard this. She covered her face and started crying. What did you promise me before? You said you would take good care of me and the baby when you brought me here. Now I just want to use the air conditioner, and you're not willing. I'm carrying your son. If it really doesn't work, I'll abort the baby. These words hit my mother-in-law's heart. She quickly comforted Felicity. Don't abort the baby, Felicity. Soren is just in a hurry. Calm down. It's not good for the baby. Then she turned to Soren and ordered, if there's no air conditioner, go borrow some ice from the neighbors again. Hurry up, Soren had to call the neighbor. I don't know how many times this was the time to borrow things. The other side simply and straightforwardly refused. Brother Wang, my wife is pregnant. Please be accommodating. Soren pleaded humbly. It's not that I don't want to help. Our refrigerator is not big either. Every time I freeze a basin of ice for you, the things in my house are going bad. There's really no way. The neighbor's reply was full of helplessness. Soren had to give up. Suddenly, my mother-in-law snatched the phone. Who are you fooling? If there's no space in the freezer, you can put it in the refrigerator. Do you think we're stupid and trying to deceive us? My mother-in-law had always been unreasonable. Her words made the neighbor very angry. How can you talk like that? I'm kind enough to lend you things, and I'm wrong. You city people are so stingy. You're so reluctant to lend a basin of ice. You have no conscience. Your whole family will be roasted to death sooner or later. Her eyes rolled, and she suddenly thought of something. By the way, my daughter-in-law got sick after using your ice. You'd better send a new basin of ice over, or we'll call 110 to arrest you. You're crazy. The neighbor directly hung up the phone. My mother-in-law held the phone triumphantly. Don't worry, they don't dare not to come. Unfortunately, she miscalculated. Not only did they dare not come, but they also sent the call recording to the homeowners group. Now Soren became famous. Everyone in the group started to criticize him and said that they would never send anything to his house. Soren cared about his face and left the group on his own. Looking at the chat records in the group, I felt a sense of pleasure in my heart. Soren's mother was really something. She didn't leave any leeway for this family at all. 07. The temperature in the city was getting higher and higher. Many people moved to the suburbs in just a few days. The surrounding villas were all occupied. It was not convenient to go shopping here, so the neighbors had to borrow some supplies from each other. To avoid attracting attention, we also joined the ranks of borrowing things. However, whenever someone lent something to us, we would return it double. Over time, everyone thought we were just here to escape the heat, and no one became suspicious. The weather in the city had reached a level that humans could no longer tolerate. People tried artificial rainfall, but it was just a drop in the bucket. Under the high-temperature disaster, the death toll was rising sharply. The government dispatched the armed police to maintain order and strictly restricted residents from going out. Everyone could only live on the supplies distributed by the government at home, and for a while, people were in a state of panic. Fortunately, because of Daisy's early warning, I had a small haven in this chaos. I tried to contact Daisy, but I never received a reply. At this time, Soren took the initiative to call me for a video. After I answered, his embarrassed face appeared on the screen. His hair was messy and stuck to his forehead, and his clothes were soaked with sweat. When my daughter heard his voice, she rushed over excitedly. Dad, I miss you so much. When will you come to see me? My daughter had completely forgotten about the injury she suffered last time. Soren's face was very unnatural. After a long time, he replied in a low voice, Dad misses you too. Where are you now? We're in a super big villa. Mom bought me a lot of delicious food. I was afraid that my daughter would reveal the fact that we had stocked up on supplies, so I quickly interrupted. What do you want to talk about? My tone was cold and tough. Soren was obviously at a loss and stammered. I just want to see if you and the daughter are doing well. Liana, have you moved? My mother is sick. So we found a place to recuperate. you've seen that Sage is fine, don't bother us if there's nothing important. I sent my daughter away and mercilessly issued an expulsion order. Suddenly, Soren's emotions broke down, he lowered his head, and tears streamed down his face like a broken string of beads. Liana, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have betrayed you. These days, I've been really suffering. Give me an address. Let me come and take care of you. Okay. I looked at his crying face and felt no emotion in my heart. Stop pretending, Soren. What kind of face did you show when you drove us out? Just stay with your son and don't disgust me. After hanging up the phone, I directly blocked all his contact information. Soren was so broken hearted. Something must have happened again. I couldn't help but want to see the good play. I opened the monitor and sure enough, I found that their family was in a big mess. Felicity, taking advantage of her pregnancy, had monopolized the supplies distributed by the government. Soren and his father objected, but were stopped by my mother-in-law's tricks of crying, making a scene, and threatening to commit suicide. In her heart, her grandson was more important than anything else, so, after a chaotic negotiation, Soren, his father, and his mother shared one share of the supplies, while Felicity had 3 shares, although I really hated this mistress. I had to admit that her actions made me very happy. Soren's father was overbearing and dictatorial, and his mother was unreasonable. I had endured so much anger from them, it seemed that only a more ruthless person could deal with them. 08. While Soren's side was in chaos, I also faced a new problem. This place was too remote, and the infrastructure was not perfect. After a few days, both water and electricity were cut off. My father's generator and solar panels finally came in handy. Although it was not as good as the municipal power supply, it was enough for our family of 4. We didn't know when the temperature would drop. The 2 large freezers at home were still running, so we didn't dare to be too extravagant. Usually, we tried not to turn on the air conditioner. Although adults could endure it, children had a higher body temperature. Not turning on the air conditioner was really suffering for them. My daughter's face was flushed red from the heat. But she never cried or fussed. Her sensible appearance made my mother burst into tears. Seeing this, my father built a small hut for her with waste wooden boards and put a small basin of ice in it. Only then did the little girl feel better. The lack of water and electricity was not the most terrifying thing. The terrifying thing was that as the supplies became scarce, there were cases of theft and even robbery of supplies in the community. To avoid accidents, my father sealed the original door of the basement with cement, moved some furniture and placed it on top, and opened a small door under the kitchen cabinet. Among these villas, only a few had basements. When the thieves came, they couldn't find the door of the basement, and without thinking too much, they took the things we put in the kitchen and ran away. Later, several more groups of people came. My father and I picked up axes and stun guns and confronted them directly. Seeing that we were not easy to mess with and there were not many supplies in our house, they left in disgrace. Only then did I feel relieved. When I opened the monitor of Soren's place again, I couldn't believe my eyes. Soren and his parents were sitting at the dining table, dividing the meager supplies, while Felicity was tied up in the corner with a rope, and her mouth was stuffed with a rag. She looked at the 3 of them resentfully, and there were continuous whimpers in her mouth. My father-in-law finished eating first, walked up to Felicity, kicked her, and then went to the sofa to close his eyes and rest. What was going on? This woman was carrying the precious grandson. Wasn't she supposed to be extremely precious? My father-in-law used all his strength in that kick, causing Felicity to let out a heart-rending scream and roll on the ground. My mother-in-law yanked her up and slapped her twice in the face, viciously saying, "You little slut, you've been lying to us for so many days. If it wasn't for the fact that we wanted to get more supplies through you, I would have thrown you off the building long ago." The more she spoke, the angrier she got. She grabbed Felicity's hair and smashed her head against the wall until it was bloody and bruised before she finally stopped from her constant curses. I finally understood the whole story. It turned out that Felicity wasn't actually pregnant. A few days ago, she secretly changed her sanitary napkin and was caught red-handed by my mother-in-law. My mother-in-law had given most of the supplies to Felicity because of the so-called grandson. After enduring hunger and heat for so many days, she went crazy when she found out she was being deceived. My mother-in-law was so angry that her face was red and her neck was thick. But I just wanted to clap my hands in front of the screen and cheer. This old woman was so obsessed with having a grandson. On Sage's last birthday, she had heard some secret recipe that said feeding a special medicine to the first born would ensure a son for the second child. She sent me away and secretly tried to feed Sage the medicine. Fortunately, the medicine was extremely bitter, and Sage cried and refused to drink it. In the end, she knocked the bowl and escaped the disaster. In the evening, Sage kept murmuring that Grandma made her drink a very bitter soup. I found the medicine dregs in the kitchen. When I confronted my mother-in-law face to face, she was still arrogant and scolded me for being useless, saying that I couldn't give birth to a son. I was so angry that I asked Soren to send her back to her hometown immediately and entrusted Sage to my parents' care, just to be on the safe side. I also installed monitors in hidden corners of the house. Thinking about the past, I gritted my teeth with hatred, so now, no matter how miserable my mother-in-law was, I didn't feel the slightest bit of sympathy for her. Felicity was beaten to the verge of death by my mother-in-law. She lay on the ground with her eyes closed, her body covered in old and new scars. It was obvious that she had been abused for several days. After beating Felicity, my mother-in-law still wasn't satisfied. She sat on the ground, crying and wailing. What kind of sin have I committed? First, I got rid of that unlucky woman, and then I met you, a liar. Why is it so hard for me to have a grandson? I should have kept that woman's surname Joe. This old woman was still thinking about her grandson. She was really hopeless. Soren watched his mother crying and making a scene coldly. Finally, he couldn't bear it anymore and slapped the table, roaring, "Shut up! Can you stop making such a fuss?" My father-in-law also told her impatiently to be quiet, and then she finally stopped. Felicity opened her eyes wide, staring at the three of them with a sinister look, as if she wanted to tear them to pieces. I enlarged the screen and saw that her hands were moving constantly behind her back, as if she was using a blade to saw through the rope. Soren and the others had abused Felicity so much. Once she got free, she would definitely take revenge on them in the most cruel way. I was really looking forward to that day. 09. Finally, her chance came. One night, when it was dead quiet, she sawed through the rope and secretly put rat poison from the cupboard into the water. Soren and the others had no idea. They just thought the water had gone bad due to the high temperature and forced themselves to drink it. My father-in-law died on the spot. Soren and my mother-in-law, who had drunk less, were rolling on the ground, clutching their stomachs. Seeing this, Felicity laughed maniacally. She tied up my mother-in-law and Soren, rummaged through the bedroom and found a leather belt. She lashed at the two of them one after another, cursing as she did so. "You damned scumbag. What did you promise me before? You said you loved me truly and would marry me after getting rid of your wife. Bullshit. You just wanted to trick me into having a baby. Bastard. You deserve to be childless. And you, old hag, how dare you hit me? My own mother has never hit me since I was a child. Remember how you hit me? I'm going to pay you back tenfold today." The more she spoke, the more excited she became, and the force of her blows kept increasing. Soon, Soren and my mother-in-law were covered in blood. Felicity still wasn't satisfied. She took alcohol and disinfectant and poured them onto the two's wounds. Heart-rending screams came from the phone. Suddenly, the screen went black. It should be that the power went out in the city. I calmed my breathing, recalling the terrifying scene just now. Felicity's mental state must have been completely broken by the torture. Soren and his mother were probably going to have a really dark time. I couldn't pay attention to Soren and the other's situation anymore. I could only pass the time by browsing my phone every day. On the web page, the number of deaths kept increasing. The outside temperature had reached a level where ordinary people couldn't move around. Only firefighters and police officers, relying on special equipment, were active on the front lines of disaster relief. I couldn't do much, so I could only pray for their safety. Soon, the signal was also cut off, and I couldn't receive any news from the outside world. I could only quietly wait for this high-temperature disaster to end. Our family of 3 completely moved into the basement. To soothe our emotions, my mother tried various ways to cook different meals. My father also made a lot of small gadgets for my daughter. We leaned on each other, and no matter how difficult things were, we could get through them. 3 months later, a heavy rain finally came. It rained continuously for 3 days, and the temperature in the whole city dropped. although it was still the temperature of midsummer. People could finally move around outdoors when I walked out of the basement. The dazzling sunlight made it hard for me to open my eyes. I took a while to adapt before I could see the scenery outside. The flowers and plants in the yard had long since withered, and the ground was cracked with seam after seam. Everything had lost its vitality, but people were cheering and celebrating their new life. 10. After a month of restoration, the city resumed its operation, and I received a call from the police station. They told me that when the rescue team arrived at my house, there was only a crazy woman and 3 piles of white bones. After identification, the 3 piles of white bones were exactly Soren and his parents. Felicity, having lived with the 3 corpses for several months, was so scared that she went insane and was sent to a mental hospital. Soren and I hadn't received the divorce certificate yet, nominally. We were still husband and wife, so it was up to me to handle the aftermath. I entrusted all these matters to the funeral home and didn't inquire about them anymore. Subsequently, I sold the house at home. After finding the real estate agent, I renewed the lease of the villa for a few more months. I called in a decoration team and reinforced the house inside and out. My parents wanted to move the things in the basement upstairs, but I stopped them, Mom and Dad. I think we still need to stock up on some more things. A few days ago, Daisy sent a picture that was hard to understand, and then there was no more news. I hope that everything I did wasn't a waste of effort.